Okay, so what you're looking at right now is a nearly finished episode of a podcast. But as promised, I'm just going to take you through the first steps. So my recommendation is always to use QuickTime Player to record audio. I'm recording the audio just from my MacBook right now. And because I'm in a nice small space and I am using a reasonably loud enough voice, the volume's going to be good enough. So after I have saved that file, that's when I would go to GarageBand. Again, that's the application you're looking at right now. And I would start a brand new track and I would drag my audio in. So if you don't know how to do that, that's what this video is all about. So when you first go and open GarageBand, it's going to ask you what kind of project you would like. I'm just going to select an empty project. I hit choose. And then I have another choice. Sometimes I choose the drummer option, but I've talked about that in a different tutorial. So for right now, we'll just select audio. I click create. And this is my workspace. So waiting for me here is already one track where I can drag and drop audio in. Typically what I do to start is I make sure that I create two more layers of track. One I typically will use for my loops, and the other I will use for when I am cutting and clipping audio. So my recommendation is, again, if you're using QuickTime to record your audio, just save it on the desktop, because what you can do is just drag and drop your audio right in. Okay, so I have one of the audio tracks right here that I need. I'm going to be working on a podcast for Ears of East. So I literally just, I drag and I drop that right in, and then I would hit the space bar to begin listening.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
And I want to turn this off so I'm not hearing the back and forth. I simply just hit that and it will turn off. I keep listening.
I'm Ria. I'm in grade 11 and I am part of Voices for Refugees.
So there's a few things that I need to know right at the start, and one of them is going to be how I can split the clip so I can get rid of the excess audio that I don't need. So that was that bit here at the beginning when I said whenever you're ready.
Whenever you're ready.
So I don't need that. And what I've just done is selected Command T. That splits the clip. Now, if I did want to keep that, but I don't want it in that section, I can actually just drag it into one of the other tracks. So again, or if I want to get rid of it, I can just hit delete. So that's Command T, and that's how you go about splitting the clips. So one of the next most important things I need to know is how I can actually adjust the audio. And I want to show you that actually I can pick and move this audio track all around. So I've gotten rid of that little bit at the beginning. I can just select it, hold it, pull it over, and drag it. So one of the most essential tools that you need to be able to do is to adjust the audio, because as I listen to this right now,
I'm Ria. I'm in grade 11.
It's a little bit quiet, so I want to adjust that. So if I come up to Mix, Show Automation, what you'll notice now is I have this little line that I can level. Now the great thing about using this function in GarageBand is that when I click on the line, it adds a new point and I can adjust the volume from any of these sections. So if we're going to fade in or out, that's really great. Or if, as the student is speaking here, if she's quiet at the beginning and then she gets a little bit louder later on, I can adjust the volume. So again, I just did that by going to Mix, Show Automation. This function over here, my loop browser, when I turn this on, I can search all of the loop packs either by instrument. I click instrument and then I could just filter in. If I wanted acoustic guitar, it will give me the acoustic guitar only loops. Or I can go by genre. It's got all these different genres and I can pick from there. you'll notice over here that it gives you the beat count. So I know that this loop is 16 beats. It's double the amount of time that the ones that are labeled 8. I know you're impressed by my math right there. So because often with the loop, we actually just want to use a little bit of time. So I can preview any of the loops by selecting it. Okay, so let's say I want to have that loop play in the beginning when the student is introducing herself. Now, again, I might want to drag the volume down on this. I can select a point, I can have it sort of fade up, and then I can have it fade out. So let's have a listen. I pull this back.
I'm Ria. I'm in grade 11, and I am part of Voices for Refugees.
Okay, so maybe I decide this is a bit too loud. I can drop it even a little bit lower, and I'm going to pull this audio, the voice audio, all the way up. So let's listen to that again.
I'm Ria. I'm in grade 11, and I am part of Voices for Refugees.
Okay, so let's say I want to split the track right there because maybe in a bit I'm going to have the other students go ahead and introduce themselves as well. So I will just pull this over, but maybe I've also decided that underneath that electric piano I want to give a little bit of drums. So I can come over to Instrument and I can select. Let's go with either all drums or I just want a little bit of bongo. Perfect. So the thing I should mention is that I can layer in multiple loops. And to make things a little bit easier, I can drag this in twice. Just like I did before, I'm going to lower the volume on this so that we can still hear the students speaking. And I'll add one point at the end so that I can fade it out. So let's listen to the layered sound.
I'm Ria. I'm in grade 11, and I am part of Voices for Refugees.
So now if I wanted to add some of my own audio content, there are two ways that I can go about doing that. Either I can just go back to QuickTime, I can record what it is that I want to say there, and then I can drag it in, or you may have already noticed the record button up here. Now, typically I'll use that if what I have to say is really brief. So just to give you an example right now,
Voices for Refugees.
That counts me in, and you can see it's recording my voice. So I can add a question or an announcement right there. I hit the space bar to stop that. Again, I can pull this back, and I can adjust the volume on my voice.
Part of Voices for Refugees.
That counts me in, and you can see it's recording my voice. Okay, great. So, and again, just to remind you, anytime you want to delete it, because I don't actually need this, I can select it. You can see that the top bit is highlighted, and I can go ahead and hit delete. I'm going to leave it there, though, just to show you that, let's say, for example, I was recording a group of the students just chatting, and I wanted that to be kind of the fade in for the next section. What I can do is, if I leave that there, and I pull this bit of audio over, I can have this fading out while this fades in. So again, this would be fading out just as that's fading in. And I have yet to point out to you one of the other really important things to click on when you're working in GarageBand, and that's this slider right here. So this is essentially your zoom. So I can zoom way out to see the whole track, or I can zoom way in. And this is really useful. When I zoom way in, I can see the volume getting louder or shorter. This is great for when I'm editing because I can see maybe there's a little bit of a lull there. Clearly something is happening over there. And again, you can see sort of within the loops themselves when it's quieter or when it's louder. So again, this bar right here allows you to zoom in or to zoom out on your track. When you are ready to actually save the episode, if this were the completed episode, it's quite simple actually. You would come up to Share, Export Song to Disk. You do have the option to save directly, but I always recommend saving this way. So I would save the file to my desktop. I leave it selected as an MP3 highest quality. I would give it a name, click Export. It's going to take just about maybe 2 to 3 minutes for that export to occur. And then there are 2 more steps that I follow. So all of the podcasts that are part of our UWC podcast sphere go through 2 additional spaces and places. So the next step is actually uploading the file here to SoundCloud. So you can get a free account. I actually have a pay account because that lets me upload limitless files within the month. But if you're only planning on producing maybe 1 podcast a month, that's absolutely fine. So again, I would just click upload. The content then would be uploaded. And the next stop is actually embedding this onto the digital portfolio where the podcast is hosted. And in order to get that embed code, I would go to Share. And I'm pointing this out because it doesn't necessarily have to be your own podcast that you embed. If you came across something else and you wanted to embed it into your portfolio, you could. I click Embed. This is the code that I would copy and then paste. And then once I come over to, this is the portfolio or the blog for the Ears of East site, I would embed that code in a new post. So I come up to New Post. And the important thing to remember about any embed code is that you do need to hit the text tab over here. So once I do that, it's in text, I go back to visual, it will embed. So again, that's any content that you want to embed. That's how you go about doing that. Okay, so I just want to go back though and show you. We like hosting each individual podcast episode here because not only does it allow us to develop our archive here, but this also allows us to include what is referred to as show notes. So any of the links or any of the endorsements from people on the panel of that episode can be linked in there. So when you want to provide extra textual information for an episode, you have the space in the post to do that. This also gives us the opportunity to leave space for those people who would like to leave comments, and we do get comments on occasion. And this also gives us the opportunity to keep track of who's visiting us. We've had 143 visits since April 8th and from what parts of the world they are coming from. So again, in terms of actually hosting your podcast, you don't have to do this additional step. I think if you're planning on developing multiple episodes over time, it's great because then it allows your listeners to go back and check out other episodes as a nice add-in tool.